Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update video today. I'm on the other side of Madrid. I've got to work my way home, so we'll have a chat on my way back to where I live. And we'll talk about different things that have happened in Spain over the last week or so. So let's go. Now, as I just mentioned, I'm on the other side of Madrid today. And basically this is how the other half live in this country, or at least here in Madrid. A huge difference between this area here, one of the most exclusive parts of Madrid, and compared to where I live. Basically, there's nothing in common between the two places. Very exclusive area, gated community, and I imagine that the property prices here are very, very high indeed, or at least I imagine that to be the case. Gated communities, as I said, almost everywhere you go, so very exclusive living here. Now I've just got to try and do a U-turn, get back onto the other side of the road if I can. Let me see if that is possible here. I'm not sure. I think I can do this here. Let's see. And we'll just work our way out of this urbanización and try to get back onto the main road and head home. I've been doing some Cambridge exams today. That's one of the things that I do, a Cambridge examiner, and I had to come out here to this area to do those exams. And I must admit that the level of English that the students that we had today was very, very high. It was a C1 level exam, and I was impressed by the level of English that the students have. And of course I imagine, as we saw in yesterday's live stream, that their parents spend money on their education, so that is very, very important. Now I think I've just got a speeding fine there, not sure, but most likely that is the case. But anyway, what can we do? Now I just have to work my way out of this area. I'm not familiar with this area. I've been here a couple of times in the past, but not to this specific school. I've been to Santander Bank, which is in front of us there. Did some work there a few years ago, but I'll see if I can work my way back onto the M40, which will take me home. And one of the things that I mentioned was that parents do spend a lot of money on education in this country, especially shadow education. We saw an article yesterday about that in The Guardian, I think the article was from, but it was also published in Spanish press earlier in the week, and it was something like 50% of families have after-school education for their families. And according to the type of school that you go to, as we know here in Spain, there are three types of schools. You've got public education, you have got semi-private education, concertado it's called here, and of course private education. Now I'm not sure if the school that I was just in is a private school or if it is a concertado school. Basically the difference is that the government subsidizes those concertados, whereas the private schools are paid fully by parents paying school fees, let's say. And of course the level of education does differ between the public, the concertado and the private. And another thing that was mentioned in yesterday's live stream was that parents that send their kids to private schools spend a lot of money on after-school education. Around 600 euros a month, I think, is the average, whereas parents that send their children to public schools, I think the average is around 200 and something it was. I can't remember the exact figures, but I think that was the case. So shadow education or after-school education, very, very important in this country. Basically because the school curriculum is quite difficult. Children go through school not really understanding what's going on, and they need after-school help to help pass exams. And basically that's what they do. The after-school classes mimic the school curriculum, and they just try to get the kids to pass the exams, which, as we know, important for their futures. Now I'm on one of the busiest roads in the country. This is the M40. Quite heavy traffic at all times of the day on this. Lots of trucks and things like that circulating, so I have to be careful. Now another thing that I wanted to speak about, and it's been a topic of discussion this week also, is the proposed ban, or that the Balearic Islands government is thinking about. They want to follow other countries that have done something similar. For example, New Zealand, I think, in the past, Canada recently. They seem to think that that is the model to follow, by banning non-residents from buying property there in order to make it easier for locals to buy property. I think that's the main objective. Places like Mallorca, Ibiza, very, very expensive to buy property, and a lot of locals unfortunately can't get on the property ladder. So the government wants to, or is considering, a ban on foreign property sales, or foreigners and non-residents buying property. And of course the opposition party not happy about that, a little bit up in arms, as we saw the other day, saying that it is an attack on private property. People should be able to do what they want if they have the money. And of course some people disagree, saying that locals need to be helped out when it comes to getting on the property ladder. The Balearic Island government in recent times has been spending a lot of money, I believe, on social housing, but it is not fixing the situation, and therefore they are now talking about this current measure. So we'll see how that one plays out. And I'm not sure if it is successful in Canada or not, or if it has been successful in Canada. I am not sure. I'm not sure if it has been successful in New Zealand. I think Switzerland also has something similar, and there are other places around the world. I think in the UK I also read that there is a system in place where people from the richer areas of England, for example London, are prohibited from buying property in some places. For example, I think one of the places mentioned was Brighton. So it is something that happens in other parts of the world. Now when it comes to this, I think that I'm not really in favour of something like this, but of course I'm not in the situation of a person in Mallorca or Ibiza or Menorca that can't afford property, so I can't really speak for that. I think one of the main issues, if I'm not mistaken, is that a lot of international funds, money funds, people that have a lot of cash to spend, go to places like the Balearic Islands and buy property because it is a popular tourist destination, and short-term rentals there obviously provide good returns for that company, for those companies, I should say. So that's one of the reasons for the problems, I believe. So the government should really look at that rather than stopping somebody from England or somebody from Scotland or Ireland, wherever the case may be, to buy a second home. So I think that should be dealt with first, but that's just my opinion. And but as we know, those big international money funds have a lot of political power, and obviously they do lobby governments, central governments, in order to make it difficult for them to be squeezed out of the market. And ever since that 2008 property crash here in Spain, billions and billions of euros have been invested in Spain through these international funds, so hedge funds or whatever you want to call them. So that is part of the problem, if not the main part of the problem, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens over the next 6 months or so, whether the Balearics do decide to ban second homes or second residences, or whether they come up with a different solution. Not quite sure. We'll see. Now we're going through the south of Madrid here currently. We're going through an industrial area, also a shopping area. I think we'll come up to an El Corte Inglés in a minute. This is a very busy industrial area. It's also a residential area. You can see flats there on the side of the road, and as I said, a shopping area as well. Getafe is the name of this area. Now another thing that I want to talk about today is the Spanish tourism sector. We saw the other day the Bank of Spain said that more investment is needed in order to keep the sector competitive. The beach and sun tourism, which has been criticised in recent times as not the best type of tourism, but the Bank of Spain the other day, as I said, saying that more investment needed to keep it competitive, especially with all of the competitors around the world, Greece, Turkey and places like that, that are trying to steal tourists away from Spain. Spain's still a very popular destination. Close to 70 million people last year visited the country, and this year, 2023, the government is hoping that it can get back to pre-pandemic levels and recover that important slice of GDP that the tourism sector brings to this economy. And as I said, more investment needed, because maybe over the last few years investment has dropped off. People haven't invested as much, obviously because of COVID. Spain might have fallen behind, and there has been a little bit of negative press about Spain, especially in British newspapers over the last few years. And on the channel I've seen lots of people that are saying that they're going to start going to places like Turkey, give Spain a miss. Spain's become too expensive. They don't get the same holiday experience that they used to get. That's what people are saying. Don't know, but we'll see what happens in the future regarding that as well. And people are saying, well, it's a bit of a contradiction, because a couple of years ago people were saying that Spain needs to change the model to move away from beach and sun tourism, and then you see the Bank of Spain saying that more investment is needed in it. So a little bit confusing, and I can understand why a couple of people in the comment section were confused by that news. I for one am also confused, but I suppose if you have a sector that does bring in a lot of money, you want to try and keep that sector as active and as up to date as possible. That would be my conclusion, and try to diversify at the same time if possible. Diversify in technology, diversify in industry and things like that. And of course the government is saying that that is happening currently, but we'll see in a few years' time whether or not the correct investments have been made. With all of this European money that is coming into the country, billions and billions of euros. So we will see in coming years whether or not the government has succeeded in its plan to diversify the Spanish economy. Time will tell. And the final thing I want to talk about today is Prime Minister Sanchez's words earlier in the week. He was at the Davos conference in Switzerland, and he addressed the problem of the far right in Europe. We know here in Spain the far right is represented by the political party Vox. Vox is currently in government in some area, I think in one area in Spain. Mr. Sanchez said that Vladimir Putin is responsible for the rise of the extreme right. Don't know if that's true or not, but that is the theory that's coming out of the left side of politics. So Mr. Sanchez calling on other European countries and other countries around the world to stop the rise of these more radical parties. And I tend to agree that radicalism in politics is not good for anyone, whether it's left-wing extremism, whether it's right-wing extremism. I think people should be more moderate. That's just my opinion. I'm sure people will disagree with those comments. But anyway, as I said, what can we do about this? It is confusing, as we know. All of the different political parties here in Spain, I've mentioned on numerous occasions just how difficult Spanish politics is to understand, and even experts on Spanish politics sometimes have problems to understand exactly what is going on, not only in this country but also in other countries as well, when it comes to the rise of extremisms. So yeah, again, we'll see what happens and if people heed Mr. Sanchez's advice. Now I'm coming up to the M50. I've gone from the M40 to the M45 to the M50, three of the most busiest roads here in Madrid. And I'm going to be home soon, so I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the video out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. If you have an opinion on any of the topics that I've mentioned here today, please feel free to add it to the comment section below the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hasta luego. Until then.